Leicester City are still alive here. Balotelli, Aguero! Back, Fuchs. And the ball in behind Damian Vardy! It's 11! It's heaven for Jamie Vardy!
You are an ostrich. Well, your head must be in the sand. Is your head in the sand? Are you flexible enough to get your head in the sand?
Now the fans are shouting every week, Louis van Gaal's army! Louis van Gaal's army!
One defeat after a fabulous start. The game just got away from you there.
I have nothing to say.
Nothing to say about the game at all?
Nothing.
On to a team that also had a good year, but didn't maximize their year. Leicester City. Last year 5th, this year 5th.
Last year disappointment, this year disappointment.
It's hard to say because Brendan Rodgers does such a good job for them, pushing them into Europe again, and they have so many good young players. What's your take on their situation, their season, really?
Yeah, I mean, they were in the driver's seat just like last year. They had control over their own fate to get in the top 4. But this year, we mentioned it a couple episodes ago with the FA Cup. You know, maybe they pushed for that. And then at the end of the season, you could tell they looked like they were pretty tired.
Yeah, gassed.
Just getting run all over by everybody. Mm-hmm. Especially against Chelsea. Chelsea really had them pushed back.
Yeah, had them right where they wanted them. I would say just some notes about some stats I noticed. They had a lot of penalties this year.
Vardy is good at that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you wouldn't think you could necessarily count on, but as long as they have Jamie Vardy, they'll be able to do that. Least amount of defensive errors leading to a shot. They're just solid at the back, and with Soyuncu, Fofana, they're such a solid pairing. They'll be good with Wes Morgan leaving as far as skill. Vardy, highest expected goals per 90 in the Premier League. Iheanacho, highest non-penalty goals per 90. They had 3 guys in the top 10 in pressure efficiency. And then Ndidi led the Premiership in tackles in the mid-third. He's just a great ball winner for him.
Yeah, big thing for Leicester this year, Iheanacho coming out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Scored 12 goals in 25 appearances. I mean, that's a huge plus for Leicester.
Yeah, I mean, not even for now, but just going forward. I mean, a lot of what he has to do is impacted by Vardy, but eventually they're going to have to replace Jamie Vardy. He's getting older. You don't know if Iheanacho would necessarily be able to directly place Vardy, but, I mean, at least this is something where you have signs where they might be able to bag some goals even without Mr. Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, you're not left completely
goalless.
I mean,
they don't have a guy who can bag some goals.
Jamie Vardy, 15 goals this year in 34 appearances. There must have been a good amount of penalties in there.
There definitely was. And he didn't do the most with all of his chances that were not penalties. He was a little inefficient when it came to that. He could have scored a couple more, but...
Yeah, but he also did well. He got 9 assists this season, which helped having Iheanacho there. So he did look good in that regard. He's just
becoming a different player.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not the just pacey get in behind striker and bag the goal. You put him up front by himself. He's still very pacey, just not quite as fast. And then if you pair him with someone that he can really work with, like Iheanacho, he's shown that he possesses the mental part of his game where he's able to, distribute the ball.
Yeah.
When right. Well, with their season that occurred, what's next for him? Just top 4? I mean, I don't know what else there's left to do. They have to just get over the hump.
Something I'd like to see out of Leicester would be a deep run in the Europa League.
Mm-hmm,
maybe
that's fair.
Getting to the final
Yeah, or in
maybe
the
winning a
semis.
final.
Yeah,
I mean,
just something.
that'd definitely be a big step for the club. I think that would help them push forward into their goal of top 4.
Mm-hmm. Also, another thing, looking forward to next year, Harvey Barnes and Luke Thomas specifically in their role that they'll have, because they looked, when they were playing this year, it was clicking. They were looking good
Yeah.
with those guys in the team, and those young pieces will definitely be massive to improve. And I just can't wait. If I'm looking forward to one thing from Leicester next year, it's to see Fofana play. That I really enjoy watching that guy play.
Yeah, also, the reports are saying that they might be interested in bringing in Kabak, who has been on loan at Liverpool from Schalke. I think that'd be a good move if they can get him for the right price. It did show that they needed a little more depth.
Absolutely,
at
getting
center
tired.
back,
Plus,
so-
if they do end up making a Europa League run like we suggest,
Yeah,
they're
you need
not
that
gonna
depth.
they're not gonna be able to not rotate their squad. Like that's just not
Yep.
possible.
So ultimately, finished in 5th. They could have finished top 4. They lost to Chelsea, and then they lost to Tottenham at the final day, and that sealed
Just
their fate.
Just disappointing at the end there. What, they had the most time in the top 4 for the season, I believe, out of all the teams, even Man City, which is just crazy for them not to finish there. But we'll go to a team that did finish top 4.
Just slipped in there at the very end.
Oh gosh.
Liverpool.
Talk about a team that may have not deserved it after their run they had. 4th this year, obviously won the Premiership last year. Just injuries galore, wouldn't you say? Just
Yeah, I
That's
think
what it
this has
came down
been the
to.
worst season for injuries I've ever seen from a team. I mean, just the injuries and also who got injured. Of course, Virgil van Dijk tearing his ACL from that tackle from Jordan Pickford.
yeah.
That was a nightmare. And then it didn't help Joe Gomez and Joel Matip also
Going down.
going down. So then they're
Scrambling, relying on 2 youth players pretty much, in Phillips and Williams, to be their
and then bringing in Kabak on loan.
Kabak too but they ended up kind of just mainly relying on Phillips and Williams, and really kind of saved their season, those guys' performances.
Yeah, they definitely stepped up to the challenge for sure, and they did good enough to allow the offense to do their work.
Yeah.
I mean, like Salah having another great year, 22 goals, 7 assists. You know, he's just doing what he does.
The rest of the attack, not as sharp as years past. Mane and Firmino, not quite as good as they were before. Still put up numbers, but just not. I know that a lot of Liverpool people talk about how Firmino impacts the team outside of goal scoring and assists, but even then, he wasn't as efficient in most categories as last year. They bring in Jota as another attacker. He looked good.
Yeah, I really like that addition.
Yeah.
I think he fits in nicely. The only problem was that
It
he
got
also
hurt.
missed time.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be important going forward. I think he might replace Firmino.
They very well could. I don't know what they do with Firmino. I don't think they're going to look to sell him necessarily, but if the right offer came along, I think they'd consider it.
Yeah.
Again, with their style, just one of, if not the best passing teams, most through balls, most crosses. And I mean, that's what's going to happen when you're going through Robertson and Alexander-Arnold, who are just fantastic yet again. Most defensive errors that led to a shot for the other team. So, I mean, that's just going to happen when you're on your 5th and 6th center back and you're bringing guys on loan from Schalke who had like a negative 80 goal differential in the Bundesliga. So, and you know,
So what do you think of Thiago going for this season?
I felt a little disappointed at him. I mean, maybe I hold him in high regard just because of his time at Barcelona and Bayern. He looked good. I knew that he's more of a rotational piece just because he didn't play all the time at those places, but he definitely had his moments for Liverpool where he showed his quality. I'm mainly concerned for them about Wijnaldum and how they're going to replace him as a rotational piece as well. Because, I mean, you saw the injuries this year. They need to get as many guys as they can, and they really, really relied on Wijnaldum at times this year.
Yeah, missing out on Henderson for the end of the season, too. Definitely going to have to pick up some quality players there. Get some depth, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Wijnaldum this year, percentage-wise, was the best long ball passer in the Premiership. I mean, that's just going to be a massive hit to their team that's already so good at passing. But, I mean, it doesn't hurt, or it doesn't help losing a guy like that.
Yeah, I think the key thing for Liverpool in the offseason last season, I didn't think they did enough to reinforce their team to put in another good season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they brought in Diogo Jota.
That almost felt like he's a great player, but it almost felt like a panic by the way they got him. They waited
long. Thiago came on a free. I mean, other than that, it's like when you're at the top, you can't just expect to do that again.
Yeah.
You got to bring in new guys, freshen it up.
Absolutely.
It's like, how can you be so stingy, the owners, after winning the league? But they were.
That's what they are. I mean, it's other sport, but you see it with the Red Sox. They win the World Series. They're willing to trade Mookie Betts. Don't want to pay him. So,
yeah,
you know, it's just one thing with the ownership. But Liverpool, I'm sure, if they can finish third this year with all the things that went wrong.
Fourth.
Well, Chelsea is fourth. Don't pull up the table right now, dude. They were third.
Liverpool was third, just as I said. I definitely didn't have this written wrong on my doc.
That's okay. That doesn't matter.
There, it's fixed.
It'll be interesting to see because would Nat Phillips and Williams, do they just loan those guys to other Premier League squads now because they proved that they could play? Or what did they do with them? Hold them on as rotational pieces?
I think they'll look to cash out on Nat Phillips. I mean, when is his value going to be any higher than what it is now?
Yeah.
There's definitely teams that could use him.
It can't be ruled out, for sure. But just with the injuries, replacing Wijnaldum, maybe looking for another attacker if Firmino has another year. Any other points you want to hit on Liverpool?
No, I'd just say that this season would be considered a success after where they were halfway through the season. I mean, they got into the Champions League.
This is as good as it could have got for them.
You'd think they'd probably finish in, I don't know, 8th?
Yeah, that's where they were for a long time, and then they put some wins together at the end, and the Alisson header really bailed them out. That's what their season came down to. Speaking of a team that did achieve high results this year, Man City.
They were very high.
Yes. First in the Premiership. Didn't achieve their main goal in the Champions League, but that's another note. At least they won by what felt like a country mile, honestly. Didn't it?
Yeah, it seemed like it, but when you look back, they had a pretty slow start. They lost their second match of the season to Leicester 5-2. They drew to Leeds, West Ham, and Liverpool, and then they lost to Spurs 2-0. And then they went on the run, which pretty much, you know...
It really just kind of cemented
how
how they got where they were.
15 wins in a row, only ending when they lost 2-0 to Man U.
Yeah. Well, Man City, we know their style. They're the carry club. They get their guys forward, and then they work it back, and they let Stones and Diaz push it forward, and they facilitate out wide. What's weird is I was looking at their passing styles, and they're mid-table in low passes, so kind of like around your shins or knees, but then over the top balls, they're bottom. They're never sending over the top balls.
Makes sense.
It's all ground passes from them, quick, short. I guess you'd suspect that, but near the top in tackles in the final third, so they're getting the ball back. You may have it, they're getting it back. They're getting it back and they're getting their shots. Rodri was second in passes into the final third, with Højbjerg pretty close behind. We'll get to Tottenham and stuff, but De Bruyne topping through balls. I mean, De Bruyne was tops in all kind of shot and goal creation metrics that you want to use, expected goals and whatnot. So,
Yeah, the weird thing for Man City this season, they never really played with a number 9.
mm-hmm.
Sergio Aguero spent much of the season on the bench. The time was split up kind of between De Bruyne and Foden, and they played a false 9 system. But it's like, Man City can win the league pretty easily without even having a striker.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of scary to think if they got a guy like Kane.
Oh, that'd be, maybe they wouldn't implement him that way. Maybe they implement him as a 10.
Fullback.
Yeah, they'll have him as a pivot. There's really not much to say about City. They just dominated. Great year from Diaz and Stones, De Bruyne as well. Obviously, Foden really stepping onto the stage, establishing himself. The weird thing I would say that really stood out was Gundogan just becoming a goal scorer.
Yeah, that was weird.
That's probably one of the top 3 strangest things.
Not to mention Raheem Sterling had a pretty poor season.
That's what I was going to touch on. He just was not Raheem Sterling.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was perfectly encapsulated by the final yesterday. He just, whenever he got the ball, was just not doing anything with it.
Let me ask you this. So, Man City, champions of the league, but they lost the Champions League.
Yes.
Does the loss in the final overshadow the title?
I think most people will, because the main thing with City has always been the Champions League. They've won the Premier League how many times now? With Pep, it's the second time? Even before that, they won the Premier League.
Yeah, third time, I think. They're fifth in the Premier League era.
Yeah, so it's always about the Champions League for them. They finally got there, and they lost.
Yeah,
so,
I'd agree. I mean, they bring in Pep, who's supposed to lead them to glory in the Champions League. They spend £1 billion on players, and
their goal is clearly the Champions League, and they got to the summit and they blew it.
They blew it. Yeah. I agree with you on that. You'd expect Man City to finish in first, I think,
or at least top 4 for sure. I think what was their worst year is Pep's first year, and they were third or fourth because he didn't necessarily have the guys that he wanted in his squad. So
for me personally, I expect them to finish first every year. Just because of the amount of money that they spend, they should be finishing first every year.
No, it's definitely fair, and they're not just buying meme tier players. they're getting like the best and brightest guys that they could get. So you would not just back them to repeat, but you would just almost expect it.
I'd expect it, especially in the state of the league. If you look at the other teams around them, Man U, they're still a ways off.
Yeah, I don't know. You could make a case that Man U's kind of peaked in a way. I mean, they still have young guys and whatnot, but in terms of efficiency and how they play, they always will kind of have some holes in their squad. But this may be about as good as it gets for Man U.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
agree.
it necessarily is. I'm just saying that there's a good chance it is. Chelsea more than likely will bounce back. That just comes down to their productivity from a number 9. They just need goal scoring.
If they could find a goal scorer, or if Werner starts scoring
goals again,
then I would definitely put them
great shape.
up for title contenders.
Same with Liverpool. I mean, they'll be in it, but those are the main 4. Leicester, I don't think will push for a title. They'll push just for top 4 European spots. Tottenham, we'll get to that, but who knows? We don't even know who their manager is. Arsenal is still kind of slowly building up. They're getting there. Leeds will push for Europe, but there's really just 4 main teams you'd say that are title contenders, and the contenders is kind of loose for United, Chelsea, and Liverpool.
Yeah, just the amount of resources that Man City
have.
So.
Just real quick, one last thing. Do they bring in a 9, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
If there's one team that's going to pay $100+ million for Harry Kane, Man City.
Yeah.
And you better watch out because that's scary.
I don't know. I could see Chelsea try to, but I don't think Tottenham would sell to Chelsea. I think they'd be definitely more willing to sell to Man City. But the other side to Manchester now, Man U. Let Sam just delve right into it. His actual club, not Arsenal.
A much better season for Man U from what they've been doing in the past few years.
Yeah, it definitely did feel better because last year finished third, this year second. It feels like there's some kind of improvement, and the players just they don't seem as error prone as years past. They just feel like they're tightening things up, getting a little better.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. They're slowly kind of working towards it. In the previous seasons, they've seemed like they've had these runs where it's like, oof, this is rough. Should we fire Ole?
Yeah, it felt like there was chances where he was going to get sacked. And
it didn't seem like there were any of those kind of moments this year.
No.
It seemed like everyone was pretty confident in Ole and his system.
As far as the Premier League, yeah, I'd say people are a little disappointed with the Champions League stuff that went down, but that's a whole nother thing.
So great players. Bruno Fernandez had a wonderful,
spectacular year.
2/3 of the season. He kind of dropped off at the end.
He did.
He slowed his production in the final 12 games, only scoring 3 goals and 1 assist during that span. In total, 18 goals and 12 assists for Man U. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
Really bringing in him to bolster the attack.
Yeah, I mean, they were kind of floundering around a little after, obviously after Sir Alex, they're kind of trying to find that main guy for him. They're bringing in people like Di Maria and whatnot, and they couldn't really find the guy. I think Bruno is the guy for them.
Yep.
It's pretty much him and De Bruyne in terms of shot creation actions and goal creation actions when it comes to Premier League players. It's those two, and then a little below that, you have guys like Mount and Grealish, but it's really those as the main two. And it really just, they play through him. Short passes, they're tops at that, few long balls, solid possession, very efficient possession. We'll get to the defensive categories and whatnot, but, key passes, Bruno had the most key passes this year. And, they really rely on him. They go through him. Rashford not excelling as much as I would have thought a couple of years ago, or even as soon as last year.
Yeah, he's a quality player, but he hasn't really reached maybe the level you might have thought he could have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, still getting 11 goals and 9 assists. That's solid for sure.
Yeah.
But...
And, development for young players, it isn't always linear. It can be exponential. Sometimes it is a little slower and it doesn't go as fast as we think. And then one year he'll just absolutely pop off and become world class. I mean, that's just how it goes for some of these guys.
Yeah, especially with this season without fans. You never know. It might just be a fluke kind of year.
Who knows?
Maybe
yeah.
with fans he's more productive. Or
True.
It's been a stressful year. I know he's been doing a lot of work outside of the game, working on helping kids get food. So
yeah.
That's all he does. He gets the kids the food.
That's the break he gets from Sam.
Yeah.
See, I told you Sam was a Man U guy at heart.
Yeah. What a lad.
Another attacker that was massive for them at times this year, Cavani.
Yeah.
Not only in just production, I mean, he was one of the most efficient strikers in terms of production when it comes to shots, but and it looked like for a while that he was just going to be like 1 year and he's just done. He's out. But
yeah.
Who knows now? I mean, what he could provide to this team coming up. So
yeah, extended for another year. He started off the year, okay.
He actually started off good, and then it kind of dipped.
And then
that was the dip.
And I mean, initially when he was coming in, I was thinking this is
Kind of strange.
This is not really going to work, probably. I mean, he's kind of past it, but he did bounce back huge in the Europa League against Roma. 6 goals, 3 assists in 4 games in the Europa League.
Mm-hmm. He's just a natural born goal scorer.
The willingness to get onto the ball, just second to none.
Mm-hmm. That's why he's a great player at Napoli, great player at Paris Saint-Germain. Just, he's not one of the most elite guys at scoring necessarily for like the big occasion and whatnot, but over the course of a year, he's going to be so much better than a lot of the people you're playing that you're going to be comfortable with him. And then, man, they just need him as a rotation piece. They don't need to be relying on him to get 20 goals or anything. So that's great deal of business there by United. With that said, I don't know what wages he's on, but
probably a lot.
Yeah, it's Man U.
It's Man U.
You want to talk about the defense real quick? I really want to kind of just talk mainly about Shaw.
Yeah, Luke Shaw has been excellent this season. The revival of Luke Shaw.
Yeah,
Fat man Luke Shaw.
So there are 2 players, as I mentioned, that were top 10 in key passes. Bruno was 1, and then Luke Shaw was 7th. If you can have that out of your fullback,
that's nice.
That's massive. Wan-Bissaka near the top in blocks and interceptions combined. Harry was one of the better aerial center backs. Again, not a huge surprise. So they just have a solid core back there. Even like Lindelof wasn't nearly as shaky as years past. So
yeah, it's definitely looked a lot better than recent years.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And, it'll be one thing to see going forward if this was a little bit of a mirage and they go back to being a little more error prone, or if this is kind of how they are now, or even if they take another step. I mean, you can't be ruled out. So
yeah, one last thing I wanted to talk about is the fans protesting against the owners. I don't know if you have followed this too much. He was at Old Trafford. He was the guy that's like crawling over the tarps and like, oh, I lost my shoe. I lost my shoe, mate. I'll get my shoe back. And then the security guard's like throwing the shoe back to him.
I actually was handing out all the signs. So.
Yep, Glazers out.
I did the green and gold for the A's.
I think it's kind of funny, though. Like, they finished second.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still angry.
Yeah.
Which I understand, because the thing is that the Glazers purchased the club with this debt agreement, and then they're taking money out of the club. And I understand, like, you don't like to see that your owner's taking money out of the club.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they invested in Bruno, for sure. I mean, that was a huge piece.
Mm-hmm. Another thing probably just has to do with that whole European Super League
for sure.
ordeal, which was madness. The last thing I wanted to talk about, because are you done with the...
Yeah.
Okay. Pogba. I don't know what do they do with him?
Pogbout.
Are they just going to keep him going? I mean, he's not the same player as he used to be. Can he find his form, or would they be looking to sell him if it, like Juventus or Madrid came along with an offer? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, he's had his moments this season, but
he's just not the same guy.
Yeah.
So I guess the plan would be to figure out how to utilize him better.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to take him.
Yeah.
Not for what he gets paid.
Yeah.
Or the fee that they would want.
Can never be ruled out. And then one last point, real quick. Dean is number 1. Is De Gea staying? I don't...
De Gea is still number 1.
Damn it.
I think Dean should leave.
Damn it.
Get out of there, Dean.
Get out of there, Dean.
Go somewhere else.
All right. And from the second place team to the actual first place team.
In our hearts.
Not even in our hearts.
I love you, Steve Bruce!
The number 1 Geordie team. Newcastle finished 12th this year. I was surprised to see that they finished 13th last year. It didn't even feel like they finished 13th last year.
I was surprised they finished 12th this year.
I wasn't surprised because I watched them and they felt like the 12th best team. Just right away, Steve Bruce's style, we know what it is. They kind of just sit back and they'll chuck it forward. Yep, very similar to Burnley. So they're going to be low in touches, not going to press super much in the mid and attack. But, I mean, this year with their players, they did effective enough job to finish mid-table.
Yeah, the fans hated it. They hate Steve Bruce.
If only they had people like me who weren't like actual fans, but were just like okay with watching the team.
Yeah.
Then they'd be in good shape. But they actually have fans that care about how the team looks, and they're like,
They do not like that man. Not at all.
Important players for him this year. Early on, Callum Wilson, he was looking very, very good at times. If you look at his stats, Wilson second only to Antonio for fouls drawn that led to a shot, and just effective in terms of his shooting numbers.
Yeah, he's a great finisher.
Yeah, but just he's going to get hurt. He always does. That's why you need to have secondary guys for him. And we'll get to the main secondary guy later on, but another massive piece of their playmaking, Saint-Maximin, you'd probably say second best dribbler behind Traore in the Premier League. He's just a great catalyst for their offense because he can do so much on his own against defenders. He's just so quick, so fast.
He's a great player to watch. He's like an anti-Newcastle, or I shouldn't say anti-Newcastle. He is an anti-Steve Bruce player.
Yeah,
which
really
is funny that he plays for Steve Bruce,
and he does well under.
And he does well for him.
That's what's funny. Back to the other attacker that did well. We'll just get into it, Mr. Willick.
Joe Willick, we love you, Joe.
Joined on loan in January.
That's player of the month, Joe Willick, to you. Thank you.
Player of the season, more like.
True.
Player of the half season. Just really, I mean, it was the consecutive goals. That stretch he had was just really incredible for him and put him with some immaculate names. Some incredible stuff going on there.
Just craziness. I mean, he had some incredible runs. He did have kind of some scuffed shots and whatnot, but he put the biscuit in the basket, 7-7.
Yeah, and I mean, with Joelinton just not being the guy, I mean, they needed it. They needed it because Wilson was still out at that time. Looking at their stats, it's just kind of weird. They were low in reception efficiency. I don't know if that had to do more with pass or their players just aren't the best of quality in terms of, getting the ball and kind of keeping it. Last in the final third in terms of receptions by a lot.
I think that might just be that they play the long balls, and it's kind of...
Because, I mean, when you're behind West Brom in something by a lot, that's
never good.
That's not good. Most passes attempted against them by opponents, and they had the most efficiency while pressing against Newcastle, which, I mean, part of that is just, the system. It's going to be easier to press against Newcastle than a lot of other teams. But Willick, back to him, top in goal per shots. Cavani and Bale close behind. I mean, he was just something, and now they probably won't get him back. I would assume they're not getting him back.
Yeah,
so they got to replace him.
I think it'd be hard to sell Joe Willick after a performance like that on loan.
You have to at least see what you got.
Yeah, you have to at least take him back for a season or something. But without Joe Willick this season, Newcastle, they're probably getting down there.
Yeah, they'd probably be more like in the Brighton range, 16.
Yeah, I was going to say 15,
something like that. So, yeah, and then going forward, I was surprised because I always mention their wingbacks and stuff, and they, like I said, they're not utilized a ton because they don't go against teams that are often worse than them when it comes to possession, but they're efficient when they have the ball. I figured that, but they're just really low in attempts and whatnot, so it's like... Are they high in efficiency because they're actually pretty good, or is it just because they don't really do it all that often? It's tough to tell with certain trends on Newcastle, which obviously they finished 12th and they don't take that many shots. So they throw trends out the window, and they're like, we just want results.
Yep.
So, if I had to pick one thing to close out on about Newcastle, they need some midfield help. They just one of the lowest combined tackle and interceptions in the Premiership, just as like a squad in general. And then also maybe someone to provide a little creativity here and there. So they really could use just another 8 in midfield that can help them out. A good ball winner.
Yeah, someone who's a good partner to Shelby. I mean, Shelby is a great distributor, but
yeah,
someone a little more physical, maybe
yeah, true,
faster.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to say about?
Just the defense at times was a bit rough. They conceded the fifth most amount of goals in the league. Didn't help that guys like Dubravka, Lascelles, and Schär were out for prolonged amounts of time.
Yeah, it felt like this year more than since like 2014. They were really reliant on Federico Fernandez at times. They were like, all right, we just got to have him in there, and he played a bunch. So
yeah.
Moving on, we have our second relegated team.
Ugh.
Well, after finishing 9th last year and showing really promising signs, 20th for Sheffield.
The cellar. They weren't even in the cellar. They were like underground the cellar.
That they were.
It was terrible.
So with Sheffield, abysmal year. They sacked their manager that got them from the 3rd division to the 9th in the Premier League. And they didn't really have a choice. Eventually you have to cut ties and say, we need results now. But
well, there was also, he was upset with the ownership of not bringing in any people in the summer, which you can't blame him.
Yeah, it's one thing when it doesn't go. Well, first off, they brought in Ryan Brewster. Okay, that's world-class Ryan Brewster to you.
Yeah, I like to try and forget about that one.
I don't have a ton to say about them, and we know their play style. They had 13 assists. Like, oh my gosh. Second to last in passes that led to a shot. Last in shot created actions. Dribbled against in midfield quite often as a result of pressing. I mean, it's just bad.
I just like that David McGoldrick scored 8 of their 20 goals, almost half of all their goals this season.
Lowest top player of any side for like a player with touches inside the box. McGoldrick had like 100, I believe, if that. No, he had below. It was below. It was like 95 touches inside the box or something like that. It's just rough. Couldn't get anything going on attack. Yeah. So going forward, can't rekindle the Wilder magic, so it's going to come down to tactics and talent for them if they're going to come back up. I don't know if they have what it takes. They have a couple good guys, but not, I don't know. There's nothing amazing. Are they going to sell that Sander Berge guy?
Yeah, it sounds like some clubs might be interested in him, Arsenal being one of them. They also announced Slavisa Jokanovic would be taking over next season.
I liked him at Fulham.
Yeah, I did
thought
too.
I thought he did well. He's also been at, I believe, Watford too, as far as English teams are concerned. So we'll see. I wouldn't rule it out. You can never rule anything out with the Championship, but
yeah,
I would say press X to doubt on their on their chance of coming back up.
Yeah. Also, the lack of fans definitely didn't help them this year.
True, they're a vibes kind of team. They go off the fans.
The vibes were completely off. Season.
They were, yeah. And even during Project Restart, they were one of like the 3 teams who really suffered. It was Watford. Obviously, they were in the Premier League, and then they got relegated as a result because they finished in the bottom 3 when they weren't. Sheffield, they may have finished 9th, but they struggled. And then Leicester was the other team too that really struggled during Project Restart. Right. So that's enough Sheffield.
Yeah.
That's enough Sheffield for the day. And we got Southampton next. Another down year.
Which is surprising the way they started the season.
Yes, in that case, it is surprising. Finished 15th, 11th the year before. Strong start in the Champions League spots for first month or 2.
Yeah, 4th place after 12 games.
Yeah, I mean, and then they the new year came around and they fell off a cliff.
Yeah, they lost 7 of 9 starting in January, including the 9-0 defeat to Man U. That's got to be a real downer.
Is that bad? Is that bad? And we've talked about it before when it comes to their play style and stuff. They don't play an ugly style of football or anything, and they do a good job. They do a good job with
Very nice.
with some of the
My favorite
possession.
team is Southampton. Very nice. Great success.
7th most touches. So besides the big six, it was them after that in the mid-third, which is important to be possessing in the midfield. You need that's where a lot of the game is going to be won. Yet conceded, I want to say second most goals, or at least they were near the bottom in terms of conceding the most goals. Third on shot on target percentage. Didn't really play many long balls. They're top in short passes in midfield, besides Man City, obviously. Most passes while pressured. So teams are really, they must have seen something against Southampton where they're like, we can really get after them. They were second in tackles to Leeds, I believe, or maybe first. Oh, I think they're tied. So, there's signs of good stuff. It just kind of fell out of form in the second half of the year. We'll see what they do in terms of Ings and stuff. But first, we'll touch on a couple good players they had. Sam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, one thing to note, Theo Walcott showed he still could be a player in the Premier League.
He's definitely serviceable.
He's serviceable. He had some good link-up play. And then when you look at it, Southampton's worst run of form was when he was out injured.
Mm-hmm.
So, could be a coincidence, but
yeah,
he does help them going forward.
Yeah, and he was starting when he's in there. I mean, they were playing him at times over the, what's his name, number 12, Gineppo.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a good pronunciator of names. But as far as the goal scoring, when they did have it, Ings, Shea Adams, James Ward-Prowse kind of split it between those guys. And, I wouldn't say goal scoring is necessarily their worst problem.
No. I think they just need to find,
mainly a defensive pairing.
Who are their guys?
That's true. That's very true. They need to kind of figure out who they are going to roll with going
for
forward.
sure you would expect Che Adams.
Che Adams. Nathan Tella showed signs at the end.
Yeah.
He looked pretty good. I'm sure that the Gineppo guy, he'll start getting a little better. They have certain guys in the back line that it's like one of them will have a bad game and the rest will play well, and then it rotates who has a bad game. So overall, it's not like a terrible back line, but it is in the bottom half. And that's going to be expected when you're conceding as much as they are. Not to mention the goalkeeper situation. We always touch on this with them. It's just trash. It's just trash. They both their goalies that they used primarily this year were just not serviceable for Premier League football. It was just bad.
Yep.
So
I'd like to see them go out and get a keeper in the transfer window.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. So just to recap, just reboot before it's too late. You don't want to lose Mr. Hasenhüttl or anything. I think he's a good manager. Maybe you could look at another attacker if Ings leaves. If you're going to keep Ings, whatever, just keep him. Maybe an attack-minded midfielder, because the only one they really had, while Ward-Prowse did score and he can put crosses in and stuff, it's really Armstrong is the main guy for them. And I feel like he's one of the more kind of secondary playmaker kind of guys. So their goal creation actions were just not high enough relative to where they should be. So maybe an attack-minded mid and a goalie.
Yeah, the thing about Ward-Prowse is that he's more of a set-piece, dead ball kind of guy, and that's where he's going to, score you goals, get you assists. But, throughout the game, when there's not set pieces or whatever, he doesn't have the biggest impact.
On attack. Yeah,
attack.
He's more he can win balls in midfield and whatnot and kind of push it forward a little bit, but he's not doing the actual creating the shots and goal scoring opportunities. He's kind of pushing it forward for his teammates to do that. So,
and one last note, Takumi Minamino joined on loan from Liverpool in January. What'd you think about his loan spell?
Not impressive for me. I don't know if his style fits the Premier League. He didn't have success with Liverpool.
Yeah.
I mean, at times he showed, I guess, he had a few goals, but I don't know. Maybe a move to the Bundesliga or something might suit him a little better.
That's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, because it's more similar to the Austrian style of football. But yeah, well, hopefully Southampton can do something in the summer.
Yeah, we shall see. Moving on to Tottenham, finishing 7th.
Sam's second favorite team behind Man U.
Getting that Europa Conference League newly created spot. Last season they finished 6th. They started out the season under Mourinho and went south from there. It started off pretty good this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were winning games. Harry Kane and Heung-min Son were looking amazing.
Yeah.
And then it kind of dropped off.
Yeah, and then with their play style this year, it's hard to say because it's going to be wishy-washy because Mourinho is there, and then they had Mason there, and it's like, what exactly are they doing? And it's hard to say going forward what they're going to do because we don't know who their manager is going to be. People keep saying Poch is going to come back. We'll see about that.
Well, he might be the only person who wants to work with Daniel Levy.
That's true.
I don't know who in their right mind would want to.
I feel like it's more Pochettino would want to come back, mainly to work with Kane and Son and his guys. Try to get them going again. Just his play style, though, low in passes that enter the final third. Very relatively low for a team that possesses the ball, more so than other teams. Bottom 2 in crosses. Normally, when you think of crosses and a team's crossing a lot, you'd think it's like a better team that might be like losing the game and the other team's sitting back. But that's obviously not the case when you finish 7th. 2 top players who outperformed expected goals, Son and Bale. They had both of them. So just some magic from those guys. Højbjerg, and I've mentioned this before, the stats are very, very kind to him in terms of showing that he's a massive tackler and pressure in the Premier League. He's one of the best. He's also 4th in tackles this year. So, but when I watch him, he just doesn't do a ton for me personally.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
You just want to talk about Kane? Talk about his brilliance?
I mean, we've talked about this, but why is he still at Tottenham? I mean,
he's got to be at a title contending club.
Winning titles, contending for the Champions League. I mean, I would say the same for Son as well. Just the midfield for me was so poor. Højbjerg, yeah, he can make tackles, but progressing the ball.
Yeah, he's not the best at that. His passing is actually 1st in tackle somehow at Basuma. I correct myself there.
I mean, you can also think of the tackle stat is like, well, maybe you're losing the ball a lot.
Well, yeah, because you can tackle the ball, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily retaining possession and getting it back, working it to another teammate and stuff.
And also, he's getting a lot of yellow cards.
True. But one stat about Harry Kane, and you can look them all up. I mean, he's going to be tops when it comes to goals, specifically expected goals, stuff like that. 2nd in dribbles that led to a shot. That was surprising to me.
Yeah, you don't really think of Kane as that kind of player, but
even just more so like you don't have people distributing the ball to Harry Kane. You're making Kane kind of do it on his own.
That's true.
That's
true.
I mean, and that you want to know what that comes down to. And we can talk about bad season. You want to talk about bad season? Mr. Deli Man.
Yeah, I mean, he's been...
We were never too high on him. You can say what you want about Sam being an Arsenal fan, being not high on Dele Alli, but he had his couple years, and then ever since then has fallen off. And I
mean, even in those seasons, he'd do some amazing things, but then he'd also be invisible.
Yeah.
So
true. I mean, and say what you want about Mourinho. I know a lot of people don't rate Mourinho as highly as they as they did in the past because of his shortcomings at Tottenham and, even at United and stuff. But when a world-class manager just loses faith in you and puts you on the bench, it's rough.
Yeah.
It is. And he calls you out for your work rate. That show, that Tottenham show on Prime Video.
That was amazing.
It was a great show. Just even for comedic purposes, it was hilarious. But you could just tell Mourinho, he's like, all right, I'm going to give you a chance. And then you give him a chance, and he's like, no, this just isn't going to go. I can't work with this guy. And when a guy who wins titles at places isn't going to be able to work with you, you have to question your attitude, your work rate, your craft, really, when it comes down to it. And I think Dele Alli maybe he's going to have to take a look in the mirror and see. Because what if he has another down year? What, Tottenham, are they going to sell him or loan him? Like, you can't just have him be on your team and you don't have quality
I would
players.
think his contract would be running out soon.
Yeah. Hard to say.
Let me get your thoughts on the decision to fire Jose Mourinho right before the Carabao Cup final and bringing in Ryan Mason.
Is it even a question? Firing a guy who's 12-4 in finals the week before final to bring in a guy who's never managed before. I mean, that's ludicrous. That's insanity. What are you thinking?
Just Daniel Levy things.
It doesn't even make sense. It's like for American sports, it'd be like you're about to enter the playoffs and you like fire your coach who's won like the ultimate championship a couple times. Like, it's just crazy. And then replace him with an interim who was like a player that people got along with, but has never coached before in his life. Never taken like a, for American sports reference, like a timeout or anything in a live game.
Yeah.
Mason, he's never made changes during a game. He's never made substitutions and whatnot. I mean, you're just good. That's your best bet. Ridiculous.
They were hoping for the good vibes.
Yeah,
didn't work.
There's vibes, and then there's Gareth Bale, somehow like the guy who cares the most outside of Harry Kane on your team. There's the vibes for you.
Super sub Gareth Bale. It'd be interesting to see what happens to him next year.
I want to say Madrid sell him, but it's like those wages are. Is it £560,000? I believe
it's a lot.
It's something like that. It's incredible. You talk about you don't know who's going to pay it. I don't know. I would like to see him in the Premier League. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, he definitely is fun to watch.
He scored probably some of the best goals of the year. Just like regular goals, not like the absolute crazy goals. But they're just like, they look so nice. His finishing's so good.
Yeah, he still has quality.
Absolutely. So, but going forward, I guess one last thing we should touch on. Their defense is just pathetic.
I don't know why they thought they should not upgrade in the center back department. I mean, it's been evident for a few years.
Yeah, I mean, even like Vertonghen and Alderweireld, the year that they had a couple years where they're pretty good, and then they had the year where they went to Champions League final and they were really killing it. But you lost Vertonghen. He was getting old anyways, but you lost him on a free. Davinson Sanchez came in for them early on and was good, but he hasn't developed as you would have thought, at least not in my way. Alderweireld's getting up there in age.
Yeah, it's like they just get the most out of these guys who are getting older, and then
they let it go too far. Yeah, they let it go a little too far. And then you have
Eric Dyer playing center back.
Yeah, and well, they signed Joe Rodon from Swansea. We'll see how he develops. I don't know.
You got to get someone who's a proven Premier League center
when
back.
You're a top 6 club, you obviously don't have to spend like City, but you have to get guys who are Premier League quality right away if you're going to spend money on them. Like, there's just no point. You can always, I can't say you always develop guys, but you're better off just trying to work your youth system that way than be like, oh, we're going to sign Joe Rodon from Swansea for like £20 million. It's like, and let me clarify, that's when you're Tottenham or a top 6 club. If you're like Palace doing that, that's fine. You have to do what you got to do. You got to get players somehow, but it's not going to work when you're a big club like that. It doesn't make sense.
Right. So. Nat Phillips to Tottenham. You heard it here first.
I guess my recap for them, does Kane leave? What do they do about defense? Is Lloris staying, I guess? for another year, probably next year will be his last year,
Yeah.
I'd suspect.
Then they'll put Eric Dyer in net.
Yeah, they'll they very well might. Moving on to a team who is somehow even worse than Tottenham. West Brom, 19th, the last relegated team.
Our guy, Big Sam.
Big Sam.
If you're listening to this, Big Sam, we love you. We love you.
We don't hold it against you. You couldn't win because this team had one Brazilian guy that was an attacking mid, and that was your offense.
We understand.
Yeah. There's only so much a man can do. Another year back in the Premier League, and they go right back down. Slow start under Willick. Willick got a red. Remember that first game of the year? He got a red. That was great. Just seeing him yell at the ref.
West Brom, I don't think they were even expecting to go up last season. So then they get here and they're like,
Yeah.
we're up here. Okay. Well, I mean, we're not really going to do much other than bring in Pereira.
Yeah,
And-
they had him, and they took Gallagher on loan, and he showed some flashes for them. I don't know if he'll ever be Chelsea quality, but it's hard to
think
tell.
so.
He's 19, so you never know. But one win in for 17 matches, and it came against one of the better teams in the league in Sheffield. So you got your win against Sheffield. It's they appointed Big Sam in December, and even at that point, it was a lot to ask.
Yeah, it was too late.
Yeah. When you look at the stats for him, worst passing team in all aspects. In just all aspects. They were not doing anything in terms of distribution. But they were, you know what they were good at, Sam?
Beating Chelsea 5-2.
They were good at being one of the best blocking teams.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's what happens when
When
you
you
face a
park
lot
the
of
bus.
shots.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, and their style of just parking the bus with
Yeah.
Big Sam. So going forward, or you got notes on West Brom?
I was
too?
just going to
Oh,
say
my
one
goodness.
notable player, Sam Johnston, in net. Likely to go to a different club, maybe Tottenham.
I don't think he's Tottenham quality, and that's saying a lot. I think
You rate Tottenham too high.
I think he should be more like Southampton
Yeah,
target.
true.
Any other notes?
No.
Yeah,
Goodbye. We won't.
All I say
miss
is
you.
just keep tabs on Pereira in the championship and see what Wilder can do for them. I don't know if he can create the same atmosphere he did at Sheffield. More than likely not, but
I wouldn't be surprised if Pereira got sold to a Premier League side.
depends how much.
I mean,
Maybe
I
they
don't
do the old they loan him to a Premier League side.
Yeah.
That'll happen every once in a
They
while.
could.
Was that Remy when QPR went down? They loaned him and he bagged like 16 goals for Newcastle that year or something like that. So that's enough of West Brom. To the other West,
The
West
best
club.
West.
Yeah, the best West. West Ham, after almost being relegated last year, 6th.
our guy David Moyes. Moisey.
The redemption arc of David Moyes is truly spectacular.
Yeah.
I'll let you take this one over because I know how much you love.
I mean,
Vibes
it was an
FC.
insane turnaround. You're joking. I know, though. It is Vibes FC. Okay. Jesse Lingard comes in on loan, a guy whose vibes must have been so off. But he got the breath of fresh air. And he comes in. He's scoring. They're doing sillies. Declan Rice playing the guitar, doing
They're
the
having-
drums. It was amazing. I mean, you bring in guys like Sushek.
When you could bring in guys like Sushek and Shufal to just sure things up, because when you're shaky like West Ham were for a while, they have good guys like Jop and whatnot back there, but providing guys who are more veteran presences on the team and can really kind of provide stability back there, yet going forward they can also provide some attacking presence too. I mean, Sushek was fantastic, obviously in the air, but he made them always a threat on corners because he's just such a good header of the ball. And Soufal getting forward, really good at crossing the ball, whipping it in. And another tremendous player for them this year, Cresswell. Really good bounce back year, solid defensively, and again, getting forward, could whip the ball in for crosses, even just playing regular passes. He had, how many assists did he have this year? I know he led defenders. I believe it was 8 or 9.
Yeah, I want to say 9.
But I mean, they had the most crosses into the box this year completed. Most goal created actions from dead ball situations. I mean, what else is there to say? It's just a fantastic
They
year
had the
from them.
vibes. I mean, it's a real throwback to the Everton days of David Moyes.
They also had the most goal creations from a different shot. So even when they're just putting the ball on net, it's creating another chance for them because the other team can't deal with it. Oh, and there it is. Cresswell did have 8 to
assists.
clarify.
Yep.
They had 0 goals from dribbles. And while that might be like, oh, well, that's kind of strange, I look at it more as when a team finishes this high and has that just adds to the vibes right there. I mean, that just shows the ball movement that they have going, the sync, they're just in sync with how they're playing with each other. I mean, we'll get to the attackers in a little bit here, but
I just want to say the vibes from West Ham are contagious. I was feeling the vibes.
If you were watching West Ham this year and weren't enjoying it, I don't know what you were doing. I don't know what kind of planet you're from.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, they had that game against Arsenal, which they were leading 3-0. And
they were just exciting. Even if it didn't result in wins.
3-3, it was like
it was just
madness.
Exciting football. I'll kick this off as far as our attack. I'll let you get into it more. But Antonio had the highest non-penalty expected goals in the Premier League this season per when he played, I guess, so per 90. But, I mean, Antonio really was clicking for him this year. Lingard, obviously, when he came in, had it going. Bowen as a secondary kind of playmaker, shot creator guy, very good as well. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, Antonio, one of the best guys to just hold up the ball. And I mean,
he's so strong.
He is so strong.
We talked about, too, he's not fast, but he's quick.
Yeah.
In small spaces, he can turn so fast that defenders have no chance. But he's truly just a really good player.
Another guy, Ben Rama.
Ben Rama, he had, I saw one stat, I didn't put it down, but he was like very, very high in like expected goals, assists, like per 90. He creates chances. It's just a matter of him kind of getting a little more suited to the Premier League, and you'll be able to get him in there to get more chances and whatnot.
Yeah, he finished with 6 assists, and let's see how many goals. He had 1 goal.
Yeah,
So-
and I mean, the goal scoring, he did at Brentford. It'll come.
Yep.
But as long as you're creating chances, I mean, that's a start for you. So,
Yeah, we'll see if they can keep the team together. Is someone going to come in and buy Declan Rice? Or
yeah, we might as well talk about him, too. The impact he had on midfield. Oh, my gosh.
the man is just a machine.
It's one of those things where you'll see the price tag thrown around. You saw it last summer when Chelsea's rumored with him. You're like, I wouldn't pay 80 mil for Declan Rice. And then he just comes out here and does this, and you're like, I might pay 80 mil for Declan Rice. I might.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it's like, oh, just the ball winning. Even going forward, too, he's not just limited to being kind of like a ball winning midfielder, almost like a Højbjerg kind of guy. He can provide more.
I forget which game it was at the end of the season where he had
The West Brom where he just dribbled straight at him and scored.
Yeah, West Brom. It was just an amazing run. I mean, when you look at the guy, he's kind of a bigger guy, so you wouldn't think of him as being that strong on the ball, but he's pretty strong on the ball.
He is. Yeah, going forward, you just want to think, are they buying Lingard? If they don't, are they bringing in another guy, or are they just going to have Benrahma be kind of who they want to replace Lingard with? Center back, just touch on that real quick. Dawson played pretty solid for them this year. He's going back to Watford. Don't know if they're going to buy him or not. We'll see. Maybe they bring in a younger center back they like that they feel like can replace his
They find some
productivity.
guy from the Czech league.
Yeah, of course. They'll bring in Souček's brother.
Yep.
I don't know who he is, but they'll bring him in.
Tony Souček.
Tony Souček, and it's like Tony Kukoc, like Toni.
Yeah.
So that's enough of West Ham. We'll go to from the vibes to not anti-vibes, just more sadness
Yeah,
a little.
I was
'Cause
gonna say sadness.
What could have been? Wolverhampton finished 13th. They're 7th last year, and you might think, oh well, that's troubling if you're told that before the year. And then a lot of it just comes down to Jimenez not being in there.
Yeah, it's pretty solely the fact that they didn't have Jimenez.
Yeah,
And then
who was that against?
that was against Arsenal. David Luiz.
This is why Arsenal's our greatest enemy. This is why we don't like them. But seriously, no, it's just he's such a linchpin for their team in attack, and he's a very good player. We saw what they had to do without him. It was like they tried to still play the same style of possession-based, quicker passes, stuff like that. But William Jose, the replacement they brought in, which was kind of makeshift, and try to get anyone you can in that's of quality. He had a hard time adapting, wasn't as good. So then they kind of resorted to just doing Traore, Neto dribbling, which they do a lot to begin with, Traore and Neto.
Yeah.
But then they just amplified that, and they're like, this is our offense now.
Yeah, it was pretty predictable.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's just kind of unfortunate. But looking at the stats, second best dribbling team, obviously that makes sense with Mr. Steroids, Mr. Dribble, we call him out there, Adama Traore.
100% is on something.
One alarming stat, not an advanced stat or anything here. They had one more goal than West Brom.
Yeah, it's rough, man. Dude, their leading scorer, it was tied Neves and Neto with 5.
Yeah.
5.
It's tough. You feel for Nuno because they spent so much getting here, time and effort, money, and then it kind of just fell apart. Now he's leaving. It's a little unfinished. So it's gonna be something to see where they go from here. But they had bottom 3 in passes that put an attacker in the box. Only Newcastle and West Brom lower. They just couldn't quite get it going. But going next year, they'll probably rely on Neto and Adama Traore still. Neto led the squad and carries into the final third and top 6 in crosses in the Premier League with Adama Traore, both of those guys. But their defense leaves a little to be desired at times. Semedo had a pretty good year, I would say. He does a good job in stopping dribblers, very efficient at that. But it's hard to say. And plus they have moving pieces, like Patricio might leave and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say with Wolves.
The one thing I have to say about Wolves is as much as they play through Traore, he only had 2 goals and 3 assists in 37 appearances.
Yeah, and he's kind of like he's one of those guys almost like a hockey assist where it's like if they counted the 2 guys, then he would get the second assist, but a lot of it, he's very similar. Him and St. Maximin are virtually the same guy, where it's like they're creating it, but them soaking all the people in from the other team is freeing up other people. But yeah, it'll definitely be different going forward. Plus, no one's mentioning it, and that's when things kind of get scary. Neves could very well leave. He's a quality player.
35 mil. I think rumored.
Yeah, so we'll see. He bosses the midfield for him, but yeah, I don't know.
It could be rough.
A lot of
season.
uncertainty with Wolves, more than you would have thought coming into the year. You're like, okay, they just pushed for Europe this last year. Now they'll take it another step further and qualify for Europe, and then it just goes to show you how things can just kind of change course.
Yeah, I think next season might be rough for them.
Potentially, if they don't bring in the right people.
Who knows what Jimenez is going to be like coming back from
he's
that kind of injury.
Not even guaranteed that he's going to be the same kind of player. So,
yeah, for sure.
That wraps it up for those Premier League teams. We're gonna preview a few other stuff, preview the other teams and whatnot coming up here. Maybe touch on Player of the Year, Manager of the Year, some Team of the Year and stuff. But just real quick. And Brentford, just let me know if you want to pitch in here. This is what I got here. So Brentford coming up. Tom Frank, manager. He's something. He's a character.
I love him already.
Yeah. One thing I know is just looking at the squad, they have a lot of Danish guys. They have 7 Danish guys.
They're the Danish Wolves.
Main thing you need to know about him, Ivan Toney, that everything's going through him. He was the best player in the championship this last year. He's a goal scorer, creates assists for him. Secondary players that they have, De Silva, Canos. How about this one right here? This is my pronunciation. Mbumba. this Frenchman. They seem to be more of their secondary attacking guys. We'll see how they adapt to the Premier League, and how their midfield withstands pressure in the Premier League, because they had their main guys just Jensen, another Dane, and then they had a German guy. I don't want to try to pronounce his name. They were doing really well in terms of tackles and interceptions in midfield, so we'll see. They have depth and experience, just not Premier League experience.
Yeah. I think there's definitely room for a team to come in and
do well. I think
do well.
Brentford easily could. I wouldn't say I'd be shocked if they went down, but I'd feel more confident in them staying up than, say, Palace, maybe even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got to rebuild.
Norwich, they've been here before, just a few times.
The Yo-Yo Club.
Main thing I want to touch on is Buendia. I mean, he's fantastic for them. 15 goals, 15 assists. Can they keep him? Who knows? Pookie's back. We know Temu. Very good goal scorer. I would say the main thing they have to improve, not just defense in general, but specifically their center back pairing from last time was just terrible.
Yeah, not good enough.
Yeah. Cantwell in midfield, Buendia next to him. So we'll see. They'll have guys. It's just a matter if they hold on to him and whatnot.
Right.
And then lastly, Watford FC, the team for me. Watford FC, the team for me.
Troy
Deeney, he's a number 9. Watford, they're here. They're back and better than ever. Great run to end the year. I think they lost like 2 games in like a stretch of like 20 games or something like that to really get them going. New goalie. I mean, they still have Ben Foster, but Daniel Bachmann's their new guy. 50% of his appearances ended up in clean sheets. Second in save percentage in the championship. Top in goals allowed per 90. Along with their wingbacks Messina and Famina, who are also top 10 in goals allowed per 90.
Yeah, Ben Foster, more of a YouTuber these days.
Always. They were top 10 in points per game played last year. All 3 of those guys as well. 4 players in the top 10 of their plus minus per 90, and a lot of them were the young attacking guys, which is always a good sign. And Sarr and Joao Pedro.
Yeah, it was big that they could hold on to Sarr.
Mm-hmm. Young attackers, if they can even make more improvement. Will Hughes had a good year last year too. He really stepped up, but we'll see. I mean, Premier League versus Championship, it's a big jump. We've seen him in the Premier League before, and he's been okay, a little below average, but
yeah.
Creative mid, probably what they need to add. I don't know what they have for creativity in midfield. They don't have Pereira anymore. Last time they were up, so I wouldn't put it past all 3 of them staying up.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much uncertainty with a lot of the bottom teams. And
or they
whatnot.
could all go down.
That as well. That as well. And then just real quick recap, player of the year, just off the top of the head. Anyone for you stick out? I'd probably go Kane.
Harry Kane.
If I rated it, it'd be Kane, De Bruyne, Bruno, Grealish, and Diaz. That's how I'd have it. I don't think Grealish should get that many high votes, but I mean,
I think Diaz might get in a little higher.
Oh, for sure. I think Grealish might end up like, if they did as far as like top 10, he'd probably be top 10. But
yeah,
you got Villa into Europa League spot, and then they fell off. So
yeah, most important for his team.
Manager of the year, Pep. I don't
David
want to.
Moyes.
That's who I have in second. It's just I feel like it's always the guy who wins the league, which is annoying.
Yeah, that's lame.
Yeah, I had Moyes with Bielsa, and
Yeah.
and honestly,
I might give it to Bielsa.
even though they spend a lot and they're a bigger club, I think that it can't go past Klopp too, with how they were able to piece stuff together, because it was rough.
Yeah, there's an argument for that.
But it'll probably be Pep. Young Player of the Year. You should see look at this list I have right here of guys that qualify. Diaz, Mount, Foden, Fofana, Rice, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Calvert-Lewin, St. Maximin, Sanchez on Brighton, Rashford, Richarlison, Bissouma, Chilwell, Iheanacho. And we got guys that won't even be in consideration, like Madison and stuff.
Yeah.
There's just so many guys.
It's got to be Diaz or Foden for me.
Yeah, I would probably go Diaz or Mount, but I think I'd definitely go Diaz. And then Team of the Year. Just want me to read mine off for you real quick?
Yep.
Martinez, Dallas, Diaz, Stones, Shaw, Conte, Bruno, De Bruyne, Grealish, Kane, Salah. The only real debate I had was goalie, kind of. You could go a bunch of different ways.
I agree on the Martinez point. I think Arsenal shouldn't have sold him, but
Yeah. And then Grealish and Son as kind of that left playmaker, attacker
yeah,
kind of guy. You could go either way. I just went Grealish because what he means so much to Villa. So,
right.
can I read off some really random stats? to
Yes,
end it?
please
And it'll be
do.
done.
And then we'll talk about what we're gonna do
Over
this
the summer. Absolutely. 3 outfield players played every minute of every game. I would
James
have you guess.
Ward-Prowse,
He was one. You got it. You got one of the 3.
and I don't know the other 2.
Højbjerg, Shusek.
Ah,
So how about that? Only one player had 100% passing receiving. It was Rui Patricio. Everyone else at some point just at least messed up once. I would say, yeah, that's probably about all I have. I would just say a good surprise, best surprise I had of the year was Iheanacho, and then most disappointing player, I guess I would go Firmino. I mean, he really didn't do much for me, but you could put Sterling in there too.
yeah, I'd say Sterling.
Yeah, those are the 2 main ones.
My random fun fact is that Jack Stevens is the only Cornish player in the Premier League. Do you know where Cornwall is?
Yeah, in the bottom
bottom
left,
left,
right?
yep.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Well done.
I didn't even know that. Well, because that's Southampton's more like bottom but middle of
Yes.
England, correct?
Yeah, South Coast. Yeah.
It'd be funny if he was on like Newcastle, and then you're like, how did Newcastle find this guy across the country?
So that wraps it up for the 2020-2021 season recap. We hope you enjoyed it. Going forward, we have the Euro Championship 2020. We will be covering that. So
Very exciting stuff.
stay tuned for Lads on Tour. We're going to be covering the Euro Championships. A lot of fun stuff coming up.
Yep, mainly focusing on Premier League players and just what they have going on in the tournament, along with maybe touching on some rumors here and there, some breaking news. But yeah, I can't wait. Looking forward to the summer, but also can't wait for the summer to be over so we can get to August.
That's right.
Yep. Until next time,
Signing out.
we're out of here.